it's not just about changing the conversation. It's about changing the goal of the conversation. It's not just about trying to be right or trying to prove somebody wrong, but it's about seeking to understand, seeking to learn, and seeking to grow. And when that's the objective of our conversation, that's when everybody starts to win.
If you don't understand, don't misunderstand. And a lot of people, when they don't understand, they already draw their conclusion or make assumptions that their perception of what they understood is the reality. If we're not trying to be right or trying to make somebody else wrong, but we're seeking clarity, that's where the bridge can actually be crossed.
All right, welcome back. Another episode of It's Not So Black and White. This one's going to be an interesting one because it's the first time we've had 5 people in a conversation. So we'll try not to shout over each other. Special guest tonight. He's only showing up once unless he has a really great time, and then he might come back. Reyshan Parker. And we're also welcoming for the first time Chris Wilkins and Eris. Do you go by Dejan or the other last name that I saw?
No. Well, it's all my name, but yeah, Eris Dejan is good.
There we go. So, Reyshan, I'm going to let you give your 52-second blurb on what you do, and then we'll jump into just a conversation and roll with it.
Well, hi, I'm Reyshan Parker. What I do now is I find chef-owned and operated restaurants, and I drag a film crew and my wife with me to meet them, find out about their lives, the history of the restaurants, and then, you know, they're gracious enough to cook up and let me try some of the best dishes they offer, and I get to meet a lot of fun people around the country and taste a lot of food. And I have a fun new show idea that I think is the reason I'm here, but I guess we'll get to that. You guys, everybody likes to break bread, right?
Yeah. Well, so you had this concept that we talked on when I was on your podcast, which is called
Beyond the Check.
Beyond the Check. There we go.
Which is also the name of the show, in case anybody wants to go watch me find the chef-owned restaurants. It's on Amazon, Tubi TV. Waiting, shameless plug.
Quick, get all your shameless plugs in to start things off.
Follow me everywhere.
Yeah, follow me everywhere. Beyond the Check, Reyshan Parker, all that fun stuff. Cool. We're all done. Thanks, everybody. We'll see it. Yeah, that was your 60-second microcast. So, yeah, so you had a show idea. I think you were just going to call it Breaking Bread or something like that. So what was the concept you were thinking of here?
So I wanted to do a potluck thing, because I feel like potlucks have pretty much died out. When's the last time any of you went to a potluck? When's the last time you were invited to a potluck? When's the last time you heard the word potluck?
2019.
Okay, all right.
Well, I have to say, actually, in my circle, we do regularly do them.
Do you? That's good.
Cool. But mostly is like I was doing them a lot with clients, so it would be sort of a way to get my clients to meet each other and to do exactly that, break bread, right? Because this ritual around eating, which I'm sure is what you're going for, is super important to social glue, right? It's the good stuff.
Right. And even at Thanksgiving dinner, you manage to sit around the table and fight, but there's food involved. So everyone manages not to kill each other somehow, right?
Probably because there's food there.
Even with the cleaver in the turkey, it's no one's dead.
It's a safe space.
Survivors.
Yeah.
So what I was thinking was you take people of, different backgrounds and different beliefs and different political spectrums, and you make them make one of their favorite dishes, and everybody brings it to the table, and everyone eats and shares food, and then talks about, issues over food. The cleavers will stay in the drawer.
Right. So the idea. Oh, go ahead, Lamar.
I want to say sometimes they're right in the hand. There's that temptation, and you just cut into the meat, and then you make sure it's a piece with a bone because you have to work harder to burn the energy to make sure the cleaver stays in the hand.
I think it's a really epic
military
idea.
Guy who's like, "Give me a fork, we're good."
2 is 1, 1 is none, right? That's the Marine motto.
Exactly.
I think it's a really epic idea because I think, you can look back as long as you like in history and see examples of peace being brokered over food, right? Like it's a huge component of how we interact with each other.
And
But-
you know, like the Daily Show or like a talk show, you know, where you really could eventually get higher end people potentially who are in control of the stupid world and hash it out for realsies, you know, over a good country biscuit and gravy.
Yeah.
What- Yeah, I think every one of us, I think, is down for a country biscuit and gravy. I think I shouldn't speak for everybody, but it sounds pretty awesome. But you know, everywhere that I've traveled, and I've been to about 45 countries. Everywhere I've traveled, like food is like an integral part of the culture and the people and their sense of identity. And my passion for food meant that I was really warmly welcomed almost all of the time because I was so excited to try whatever they had to offer. Got some weird dishes sometimes, but you know what? Once you get over sort of the first, I've never tried this before. This looks a little weird and has legs. But after you get past that, you find actually it's pretty good.
Chicken feet still get me. I just
Yeah, okay. That's one that I haven't been able to do is chicken feet. I am moving into the world of being an ethical omnivore. So you know, gizzards, tongues, liver's a hard one. Kidneys haven't quite got that one yet either. Working on that.
I miss liver, man.
Oh, I don't.
Growing up, there were things that I just never ate, but as I got older, I just got into them and developed these cravings for them, like onions, for an example. Like I could eat raw onions. I don't even like cooked vegetables. My vegetables have to be raw. But as a child, I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand when grandma was cooking liver. I was like anti-liver, but as I got older, I craved for it. And
it's all the iron.
yeah, I don't know why.
Maybe.
But I don't eat beef or pork anymore. So I'm only like a bird and seafood guy.
So chicken livers are on the menu.
Exactly. So anything.
Okay, I do actually like a good fried chicken liver. My mother was a huge fried chicken liver person, and there's just something it's such a weird texture.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
It's like dry and kind of grainy, but also like this really robust, like earthy, fucking. I don't know, but it's fried, so it's delicious.
you can make just about anything delicious if you fry it. So
Everything tastes like chicken. Yeah, I've partaken of the camels and the dogs stationed over in Korea. And
Really?
of course, you get the invite of, hey, this is the greatest meat you've ever had. And everybody's just like smiling and they're eating a piece of it. And they're like, oh, this is the best. You have to try this. And just as you swallow it, you know the stray you saw outside? That's usually your welcome to another country when you're stationed overseas. It's like, oh, that was his cousin. And then, of course, you're coming from the U.S. and you're realizing, wait, you're eating a dog. And you know the culture, they raise the dogs the same way that we would raise chickens to be eaten. But just the experience when you know you're eating something that you're culturally not accustomed to is you just kind of go through thoughts in your head of what's happening in your stomach until 24 hours later you're like, okay, I'm still here, it's good.
Yeah, nothing, right? It's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
Good question.
Yeah.
How was it?
So, all right. So literally the dog tastes almost like chicken.
For real, like chicken, huh?
Yeah. So
Does
it was,
does anyone have a dog as a pet here?
cats. I'm a cat woman.
no pets.
Let me just close my dog's ears quickly.
Okay. Oh no.
Oh, is this bones or sugar?
That's bones.
I got some headphones, some podcast headphones.
Right.
Noise canceling headphones.
oh man. It actually was pretty good. Over in the Middle East now, the camel was like really rough and bland.
I was kind of expecting to be like venison or something maybe, but
I don't know. I've had camel as well, and it's sort of like it's just
Well, it probably has no fat, right?
not much. It's a bit stringy.
Yeah,
What,
yeah.
I mean, what makes up a camel's hump? You know, like what sort of tissue? Is it like cartilage? Is it, fluid, mixture of both? Like,
I feel like I
Good
should know
question.
that, and I can't quite conjure it up. But I don't
The
think you
Asian-
typically eat the hump. Like it's really more. I remember seeing feet hanging in the window, and being like, "I'm pretty sure those are camel feet." So I wonder. I mean, where's the rest of the camel? I'm pretty sure I just ate it. So
The East Asian culture, they indulge in camel hump.
Really?
okay,
Mm.
Yeah. So
I was
the only time I've heard of anyone eating camel is from that side of the world. So they indulge in camel hunt, from what I know.
I was resisting the urge to make some kind of joke when you're talking about camel toes being hung in windows. So
No, yeah, no, I didn't say camel
It's
toes.
too
I said
early
camel
for this.
feet.
It's too late.
That was Amsterdam. Okay, that's where the camel toes were hung in the window. Camel feet were in Tunisia. It's a completely different thing.
Very, very different
So-
places.
yeah.
Very different cuisines.
She's the only woman on this. You're gonna make it harder for her, even. With
No, really, I told you, like, I exist in a male-dominated industry. There's very few things you're going to say that are going to phase me, or that I'm not going to have an inappropriate comeback for. So let's have that. It's fun.
So I have an answer. A camel's hump consists of stored fat, which they can metabolize when food and water is scarce.
Right, because there is a water element to, because you hear about the camels survive in the desert because the water stored in their hump, but it's like maybe they access it from fat, like some sort of enzymatic conversion or something.
Like it's not actually just a big trough of water.
It's
sloshing around on their back.
It'd be really hard to ride on it if it was. It's like a camel
It'd
water
be a
bed.
balloon.
I think riding a single humped camel would be the most uncomfortable ride ever.
I think you just ride forward. I'm trying to think about it.
Has any?
I've
Well, I
ridden
know
a
my
few
wife's
camels,
ridden.
but I don't remember.
Yeah, it's like my wife's ridden a camel, but I got no idea. Because in Australia they have camels as well.
Huh.
Yeah, they brought them in for traversing the desert because Australia
Of
is
course.
70% desert. So
Yeah. Okay.
and now they just have
I
like
didn't know
wild camels rampaging in the desert that sometimes get hit by buses.
that. Wow.
Do camels and kangaroos like throw down? I want to know. Like, does that happen? Because kangaroos can be a bit feisty.
They can, yeah. I have never seen that, but it would be probably very, very interesting to see. So
I have a second question, which was, as you're eating the dog and you're thinking you're eating a domestic animal, right? Does that make you reflect on the animals that we don't consider domestic and start like caring a little bit more about, like, what, if maybe that pig shouldn't be treated that way, as just like this dog shouldn't be treated like a pig in America, right?
The first thing that came to my mind, why there's a whole, I'll get into the basics of why. First thing that came to my mind was, I forgot what country it was that eats rats. Why rats? Well, because, obviously there was a point, and probably still now again, where New York City was just like, if you're walking up the block, you're coming out the train station, and Ratatouille's right there greeting you, telling you that you're walking on his step and step over the next one. That was the first thing that came to my mind. I guess I'm not an advocate, so to speak, for animals, but I do hate animal cruelty.
There was an artist who did nothing but the New York City rats.
Oh man!
Back in the late 70s and 80s. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
I'd
I'd have to go look up his name.
I have a brief recollection of that, but I couldn't tell you the name.
Those
I
things
remember being really grossed
scare me.
out about it by a tiny, as a tiny child at that point. I was like,
Yeah, those
why would
things,
somebody do that?
He
It's
did it like
brutal.
really cartoony, but like really gritty New York City, but in this cartoony way, but it was still dirty, and like
Yeah.
the rats were always in like every painting, and like they played a big part of New York City.
So then, for what would be the weirdest thing that you've ever consumed? The thing that you're like, that was way out there. I wasn't expecting to eat that.
Well, I lived in France for a long time, so it's a pretty long list of kind of horrifying things. Foie gras is one of these delicacies that I think people think of as really amazing, but when you actually, if you look at it from the animal cruelty point of view, it's horrific what they do to create this fatty liver, because that's the translation of it, right? It's a fatty liver, and they force feed this goose, they bury it, and they force feed this goose until it basically dies, and then they take the liver out, and that's foie gras. So for me, that's the most upsetting thing I've ever eaten. But there were many other things on the list in France of like,
which it's really fascinating when you think about, because we often think about French culture as kind of like if I could use the term, like a high culture, like very cultured, very forward thinking or progressive and so on. And then you find out, oh, we do this. And Yeah, that sounds like an awful practice. I think I'm I'm okay with eating animals, but my preference is to avoid animal cruelty. I would really because
Right.
animals aren't immortal, nor are we, at least in this form anyway. The next is debatable, but if they're not immortal and they're useful to consume, if they've had a useful life and then they get consumed to forward our life, I'm kind of okay with that.
Burdock.
Burdock. Yeah. What's
Candied
that like?
burdock. Bitter and sweet because it was candied, but like I don't know. It's burdock. It's what burdock is? It's the burrs, right? The burrs.
Yeah.
Like when you're in the woods, you get them stuck in your hair or whatever.
Right. Okay.
Oh.
And like your mom had to cut them out with scissors because they just couldn't get them out. That's what Velcro's based on.
Right.
And it's
Where
edible.
did you eat that?
My mom's an herbalist, so like
Oh, really?
yeah, we had lots of good stuff. My other candy was like not lilies, but the little purple flowers that grow in the front yard.
Crocus?
No,
Or the little violets?
violets,
The little tiny ones?
the little tiny violets, candied violets. So she'd take the flowers.
That's like a culinary delicacy, though. A lot of chefs, there was a huge like flower movement where people were putting lots and lots of edible flowers on things. I have a family full of chefs, so I see a lot of
that
this
was my
stuff roll
candy as a
through.
kid.
Oh,
Wow.
you're ahead of your times.
And carob.
You
Carob.
prepared
Carob.
such a time as this.
Well, I think for me, the first time I encountered like cabeza tacos, and I was like, well, it didn't register at first, like what I was eating. Because I was just thinking, like maybe that they cook the head and they sort of like, no, it's literally the brain. And so, because the brain's like just really like a lot of fatty tissue. And so it's kind of
good.
It's not bad actually. Like I would eat it again if I wasn't worried about getting, I don't know, some kind of like brain-borne disease or something.
It's like pudding, right? It's pudding.
Yeah, it's like kind of mushy, weird texture.
Like tapioca.
Yeah, it's a bit weird in a taco, like as a savory thing, as a warm savory thing for the texture. Like it doesn't feel like it matches up correctly, like when you consume it.
Like pork bellies, kind of.
Yeah, maybe that would be a good way. Yeah,
too.
yeah. And then we ate bugs in many countries. They were, I couldn't even tell you which ones we ate, but you kind of just put them down the hatch and hey, look, if you cover them in like salt and seasonings and flavorings and then deep fry them, you can kind of make.
That was the French approach with pretty much butter and garlic, right? Like that's how we get snails down. That's how we get frog legs down. All of these things, just with enough butter and garlic, most things are palatable. So what were the seasonings?
Because snails aren't good.
No,
they're not good.
They're really not.
They're not good.
They're like little erasers, like little gummy erasers is what they feel
Like
like.
always like sand in them. It's just like weird.
Yeah, land clams. No thanks.
Land clams. I've not heard that one before. Eris, for you, what's the most unique thing you've consumed?
Tomatoes.
Raw, right? Because you don't like your vegetables
No.
cooked.
That's the one I don't mess with tomatoes at all. I still can't get into them. Yeah, so they've
Even
always
in a sauce.
that I can. It's to me, it's like hidden in that sense. But
I can't eat tomatoes either.
Really? That's
Not
so weird. I
raw,
know
not
so
straight
many
raw.
people.
It's straight gag reflex. The second I like try to eat a raw tomato.
the scent of it just really turns me off. So I've never really indulged in tomatoes. But from what you folks are mentioning right now, I haven't really stepped out of my comfort zone.
What if I do like raw tomato, like on caprese, right? Like with the toast and the balsamic reduction and the mozzarella, like all together, I can eat a raw tomato. But like
like a bruschetta.
Like a bruschetta, but like popping like a cherry tomato in my. Whoa,
I can't do that.
Like a gusher of just.
It has to be
challenging as you.
Has to be
tour
diced
around.
up and hidden for sure. But yeah, I haven't tried crickets or camel. Or I'm intrigued. Like
I've had chocolate covered crickets.
Oh, I don't know if I could do it.
I've got a buddy
crunchy,
who made like cricket protein powder, Crick Nutrition, CRIK, and so I used to run a supplement store, and we'd run a weekly live show, and we'd sample different things and post our reactions live. And so my co-host at the time, I didn't tell her what we were sampling. I was like, hey, I've got this new chocolate protein I want you to try, but we're going to try it live on camera first and then get our genuine reaction. And her reaction was pretty epic when she realized what she was drinking. Well, the unveiling was actually the owner of the company bursting out from behind the door wearing it like a cartoon cricket costume, which is like green spandex with a giant foamy like cricket head. Like it was actually quite the performance. And then she realized like I was drinking crickets, but it's really sawdusty. Like it's just very gritty and sand and sawdusty. So like they're edible. Like we in Ontario, there's edible insect farms where they grow them specifically for this purpose, and they're really environmentally sound in terms of and a great source of protein. But it's just sort of
chocolate covered ants.
Yeah. The heart, but then you got to. Well, then if you're trying to be ethical, it's like, well, where did the cocoa come from to make the chocolate? Yeah, everyone has blood on their hands.
Carob, it's carob covered ants.
There you go. That's the way to do it.
No, I mean carob's so unrelevant that like people wouldn't know if it was made poorly or not. You know, Where does carob even come from?
It's a pod. It's an edible pod, like a legume. I think a legume.
Like legume? Like really? Like a peanut?
Similar, I believe, because I've got a whole thing of carob powder because my wife was doing some AIP for a couple of months, which is an autoimmune protocol, and it's quite a strict eating protocol to try and help her with some issues that she was having, and so we had to bring carob into the mix because chocolate was off the menu, which was tragic for my wife. That went out the window when she got pregnant, though. That was like, forget this. We're doing.
I mean, carob's not that bad of a substitute, really, though.
Yeah,
I don't think it gives you the high that chocolate does.
No, there's no theobromine in it, so. But I want to bring it back to this idea of like breaking bread, because I think there's a really, really cool concept in here, and that is like bringing people together from diverse cultures and differing perspectives, and saying let's have this conversation over food, and see what happens, because I think we uncover that we're probably a lot more the same with a lot of similar objectives, and it gets lost sometimes. So,
I'm sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
No, go. Is it pronounced Reyshan or Reyshan?
Reyshan.
Reyshan? Okay.
Just say it fast. Say it like Russian.
Yeah. Russian. Okay.
Like you're Russian.
My mom.
That'll get you canceled saying that these days.
No, like hurrying, not like the.
Yeah, like Russian.
Russian. Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't look that way at all. Again, my mother was not good in the phonetics. It looks like Reyshan, and I get called like I've nicked Ray, like people call me Ray.
Shani,
like,
Shan, no Shan.
No, just Ray.
MC Shan. You know MC Shan?
In high school, I was Raekwon, I was Rashid.
Yeah, honestly, when I saw your name,
name it.
I thought you were black when I saw your name, to be honest. So
most people do.
Yeah.
When I was in high school,
people are disappointed.
Oh.
But like I would call like a girl's house. This is the 90s, right? So I'd be like, "Yo, is Tiffany there?" And my voice has always been deep, right? Because every girl's named Tiffany in the 90s,
except me,
except for Chris. But I'd be like, it'd be like, Tiffany, there's a Reyshan on the phone for you. And then like I'd come over to the house and I knock on the door and be like, "Hi," and I'd be like, "Is Tiffany here?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, can I ask?" Like Reyshan, and like, "Oh, you're Reyshan."
Oh.
like I could have showed up with a fucking tattoo on my face, right? But as long as I was white, it was fine. I was fine to see Tiffany.
Did you grow up in the South?
No, I grew up in Ohio. So, truth be told, the North is more segregated than the South is now. Like as far as like clubs and working environments and stuff like that. Like the South is actually super integrated. Everybody works together, right? Like there's not like, the Latino bar, the black bar, the white bar, like everybody just goes to the same place. But like Chicago, New York, Columbus, like you have the districts and like you have certain bars where certain people go, and that's just how it is, unless it's a tourist thing.
LA's
and it's not like that in the South.
No, it's interesting. Because I was quite shocked by that in LA, because I hadn't really experienced that until moving there. And there were definitely places where if you didn't know what you were walking into, you know, and that goes for even some of the Asian markets, because they have these massive, amazing Asian markets with amazing things in them. But you walk in and you go, ooh, I don't know how long I get to be in here, you know, before this escalates. So it's really interesting that you say that. I thought that was, because I grew up in New England. And I didn't have that experience
I
there
always
then.
thought that before I moved to the South was like, oh, you know, like you would think it's the other way around, but it really isn't.
Huh. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, back to breaking bread, because there's some really cool cultural stuff to talk about in here, I think. And John did a good job of trying to bring us back around to talking about that, because I think the idea and the premise behind what you've got there is pretty awesome from the point of view of like, it's such a deeply ingrained thing, the sharing of food, right? It's sharing of resources at base.
The only problem
implies trust.
The only problem is that people start arguing about how they don't like the other person's food, and that's where the fight comes in.
Have you tried this? Like, have you sort of beta tested it off screen?
No. I mean, yeah, sure, off screen, like, but I don't know that it was like, I mean, we beta tested every Thanksgiving. I think every family beta tested every Thanksgiving, right?
Maybe not with such a diverse.
Maybe not in Canada.
People,
not in
right?
Canada.
Maybe not in Canada. You have Thanksgiving in Canada. It's just
you
not
got
the
Christmas.
same time.
You gotta, you know, there's a holiday where the whole family gets together, and you're like, God damn it, I gotta put up a fucking crazy Uncle Jim, right? And
yeah,
Eris is like, no, I don't have that problem. Look at him. Like, my Thanksgiving is super chill. It's
Chris
not
is
even in November.
Chris knows me already. I love it. He knows
He's
me.
like, no, it's cool. Everything's
He's
cool
in
at my house.
head. No, but I'm just thinking about like John, you know, like just again going back to breaking bread, because yesterday I was having a conversation with someone and we were sharing like not our likes or dislikes, but kind of like just whatever's important to us. It was a woman, and we were just like picking each other's brains on what our types are when it comes to relationships, and I brought up food because food has always played an important role in my life. Like it's not just, you know, filling my tummy, especially when being in a relationship, let's say, or a you know, the family environment. It really makes people feel comfortable, and there's energy there where it's like you're sitting next to a person. Like, have you ever thought about when you go to a restaurant, like tables kind of separate us, even though we're sitting across from one another? There's this big separation. I want to sit next to the person and eat with them to get that vibe and that connection, because I don't want to be separated. I want to, like, how we feel when we eat together means something to me anyway, whether it's with family or a significant other, etc. So the concept of breaking bread is, I think it plays a bigger role than we even think, you know, like food is.
It's a huge diffuser. It's the thing that really brings the world together. It's the thing that links cultures. You know, the chicken wing, right? The fried chicken wing is found around the world in every culture. It's one of the few things that's in like almost every culture.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that
anywhere you go, you can share a chicken wing with somebody and they all know they all love a piece of fried chicken.
Yeah. Food and music, really, it's universal.
Yeah.
Universal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's really good reasons for that, right? Like, music is something we get to do when we have free time, which means we've been successful, right? So from a cultural anthropology perspective, if you don't have time to do anything but survive, you don't make music, you don't make art, you don't spend this time on these things because it's too precious of a resource, right? So the same thing with food. When we look back at like the origin of why we share food, we're sharing survival with somebody else. So how can you not be collaborative with that person that you're choosing to share your resources with? It's super primal, right? And I think it's one of the easiest ways to get people to calm down and collaborate is to do that. And so my question for you, Eris, is when you're on a date, where do you sit?
Next to her.
Next, your same
even
cider,
a first
sir.
date.
Same cider.
First, 10th. Here's it gets like to see someone's reaction when you say, "Hey, I want to sit next to you." It shows how programmed a lot of like. It's just such a weird thing to even fathom. Like, you know, like they're like, "Whoa, sit next to me." Yeah, like. this table is let's move this table out the way actually and come closer. Maybe put the food in our laps or something, you know, like we need
Speaking
to be.
of which,
Yeah.
have you ever had Ethiopian cuisine?
Not yet. No. You're the
Ethiopian's fantastic because it's a giant like basket in the middle of
You
the
would
table.
love it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And you sit on the floor and
Yes.
you basically all like you should use the bread, right? But if you don't, it's no biggie because you can just scoop it with your hand. And it's this ultimate sharing, right? Because you're sharing like kind of germs and stuff too, right? So you better hope. And there used to be rules about which hand you used.
There still is.
Left for the wiping,
Yeah,
for the
right.
scooping.
For eating.
I'm such a bachelor that I don't even have a table to eat on at my apartment. So when women come over, we eat on the floor.
Dude, you just gotta be like, this
We
is
eat on the
Ethiopian
floor.
cuisine. You're gonna get like so many cool points.
We cook and we put the plates on the floor. We sit and we talk and we indulge, and that's it. Like that's you bring everyone.
We went to an Ethiopian restaurant for season 3 of Beyond the Check in Texas, and a Taste of Ethiopia. There's actually 2 restaurants. We went to their second one, and actually over to their first one. But they're all like, you know, from Ethiopia, traditional, and making that bread. There's like one lady. There's just one lady, and she makes it at the
nobody else is allowed, right?
And she doesn't speak English, but that's all she does. I had my camera girl back in that room with her for like an hour, just watching her make this bread, and she just came out just covered in sweat. She just like, oh my god, there's like a sauna back there, and there's just little old Ethiopian lady just back there just making the bread all day long, just like that perfect puffy like Ethiopian bread is super. I don't know why she makes it look easy. Yeah, it's just a science back there. But like if you try to make it at home, it's damn near impossible to get this like fluffy, spongy Ethiopian bread.
Yeah, there's a secret. I haven't figured it. I've tried a couple times too, and I can't get it because I've had some amazing Ethiopian food and been like, "This, I'm gonna make this," right? And then I'm like, "Nope."
We tried to get it out of her.
Yeah,
she didn't speak English.
No way.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what she said.
Well, in Malaysia is a really interesting place because it's actually quite a cultural, like a South Asian cultural melting pot. Like there is obviously Malays are the dominant ethnic part of the population, but there's quite a few like large ethnic minority groups in there as well. And we went to a restaurant and food was served on a banana leaf, and they just reach in there and grab it and scoop it and stir it and whatever, and you go, okay, guess this is how we're doing this, and you just kind of get used to it. It's from our, you know, I guess I don't say even cultured because I don't, you know, it's just a different culture is all it is. But from like my cultural perspective, it was like when the first person just reached in there barehanded and started scooping food out, I was like, God,
now I just want Ethiopian food so bad.
What's interesting. Go ahead.
I was going to say once I just kind of got into it, I was like, cool, this is how we do this. You know what? I'm just going to throw away whatever objections I have and just go into this and be present in this experience. And you know what? The food was amazing. And it was kind of a mixture between Indian and Malaysian food. And so, yeah.
How was your experience with the people doing that? Like, did you feel a difference when you were eating that way with other people?
Yeah, definitely feel more connected. It's more personal and more intimate to eat that way. It just is. And
sharing's caring.
Well, and you can see this across different cultures. Like you can, when we talk about, you know, categorizing different cultures versus warmer, colder, there's like lots of different domains we can use to sort of describe and allocate traits to a culture. And when we talk about these warmer cultures or these places that live in warmer areas, very often they're much closer, and they're closer in their eating styles. They're closer in their living quarters. They're closer in all of these different domains, and they have better family bonds and stronger family bonds. And so these things are not separate, right? They're very correlated.
What about and Chris, I wanted to ask you, I don't know what your life dynamic is like, if you have a family or if you cook for 100 people or it's just you solo, but what about breaking bread with oneself?
Oh, she's got like 18 children, so it's really difficult.
I do not have 18 children. I have one child. Hey, Lamar's back. Welcome back.
Welcome.
I have a daughter and a husband. My husband's English, so I live in a multicultural marriage, which, you know, people are always like, oh, it's not, but it is. There's definitely things that are different.
For sure. But there's like I feel like there's a spiritual connection to the food that we eat, even when we're eating by ourselves, you know? Like this food was, let's say if you're a carnivore, this food was killed and caught and whatever, and like there's that used to be alive, this thing that's on your plate, right? And that's why a lot of people who are religious or have their beliefs, they bless the food first, or they say thank you, because there's that connection when whether you're eating with others or by yourself, so what are our feelings when we're eating by ourselves versus breaking bread with others?
It's actually a really important question, because this is, and John knows this too. John is going to nod and smile at what I'm about to say, because he's had the same kind of training as me. But like when we look at the experience of eating and then digesting food, like when we take our time and we slow down and we appreciate and we eliminate distractions from our eating experience, like our whole health improves. For 1,000 different reasons, which we could spend an entire hour talking about, right? But like it's incredibly important, whether you're on your own or in a group or cooking for 100 people or just your cats, like that you take that time to nurture yourself, because you can't replace it any other way. And it's why food traditions have survived the way that they have for so long. It is such an integral part of human health. So
what's interesting is I just yesterday recorded a meditation. So I'm also a meditation instructor, and so I recorded one on mindful eating, and at the heart of it was really taking an item of food and looking at it and thinking about, what did it take for this food to end up in your hand? Where was it grown? How was it harvested, shipped, delivered, prepared before you go to eat it? And then you take it and then you smell it, and what feelings, what is emoted when you smell that food? Be present with it. All of these things happen before it ever enters your mouth.
Yeah.
And I think about the way that we very often eat, or the way I used to eat. I should speak for myself, really, like a seagull swallowing a tennis ball.
Americans, I'll prove it.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said it, because I was going to say it if you didn't.
We forget
this is American culture.
Yes.
We forget that we're actually eating while we're eating, because like Chris said, the distractions, like we're not even focusing on what we're putting into our body, like showing an appreciation for it, let's say. You know what I mean? Because
it's even in the words that we choose. We stuff our faces. We grab something on the go. It's in all of the marketing. It's very much baked into it. And when we say we don't have food culture, we're wrong, right? We absolutely do. It's just that it's very, very different than it historically was, or really should be for human health, right? And if you look at even the indigenous populations who were already here and how they would pray and thank the animal that they had killed and use all of the animal, all of this stuff is baked into so many cultures, and we're the exception.
My mother always did tobacco prayers in the morning, east, west, north, south, right? And she'd always, she ingrained in us to, thank the dandelion, when you pick it, even to just, have you pop off your sister's head. Still thank that dandelion before you do that.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know I was doing it like in the first season of the show, but like when I would eat meat, I particularly, I think it was veal. It was a veal dish, and I was like, I gotta thank the baby cow that this came from before you eat it. And I just started doing it all the time. I thank the animal before I eat it on the show. And I'm like, I didn't know I was doing it at first, and now I do it on purpose. But
okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's something to be said for expressing gratitude just as a practice in general, and how it improves our experience of life. Just the ability to even reframe and say, like, because I feel as though we've kind of lost a connection to it, because maybe we've been conditioned to kind of have certain expectations or a sense of entitlement. And maybe it makes me sound like an old on my way to being a boomer or something like that when I speak. Like, yeah, I know. Shake our fist. And it's not really the younger generation's fault. I'm not speaking down to the younger generation, but what I'm seeing is, in a sense, we're being taught this, we're being conditioned this to expect this. And the act of gratitude has been pushed into kind of the realm of like the woo. It's making a comeback as neuroscience is recognizing the value of gratitude and human happiness. But it's really a lost practice to just look at things with an eye of appreciation and go, wow, what did it take for me to have this microphone right in front of me right now? How many different metals and minerals are making up this microphone? I'm willing to bet, unfortunately, that there were probably children in Africa in child labor mines harvesting the rare earth metals that make up this microphone I'm speaking from. And so, I guess we kind of just have to make peace with the reality of the world that we live in a sense. But I know that I'm trying to become a more conscious consumer as an older person.
location.
It's the hardest thing I think that the human race probably has to face is with all the toys, all the tech, all the distractions that are in the world, and more coming every day. That if we don't get the production under control or streamlined for sustainability, then you're not going to have any of that shit to play with anymore.
Yeah.
But I think it's our world. Like when we say the human race, it's really like the North American human race, or like the human races that have such access to so many things that allow us to indulge in things and show no appreciation for it. Because I'm sure there are other places on this planet that already act the way or practice the ways that we're speaking about and wish that we did. But we're so desensitized to everything that everything is so normalized for us.
The consumption nation.
We don't even have to pay attention to it. We just exist. And
I think in so many cases, our culture, so many countries are trying to adapt our culture. They want to be like us in terms of our food habits, because it looks appealing to the people who don't have it. You look at how many times McDonald's popped up in other countries, and these countries were so excited to have the American fast food. So I think our culture has definitely spilled over into first world nations.
Yep.
And that's I think where it becomes a more inclusive title to place on the world, because our culture has been seen as the leader, so to speak, of the world. So in so many areas, our democracy has extended to the food as well.
I think I'm about to voice a really unpopular opinion.
I wanted to loop you in on this. I was like,
I knew you were coming for me. So I would say that up until around 20 years ago, that was absolutely the case. And I would say that a lot of the time that I spent abroad, I witnessed a lot of pushback against American culture. And being an American in France was a super interesting experience.
Oh, that's France. They hate us.
Well, it's not that they hate us. It's that they're literally sort of our cultural, like, they have so many things that are similar to us that they hate us because of their similarities. And then they have this incredible traditionalism that's super juxtaposed to the American or westernized way of doing things. And so, they kind of exist in this really weird space of like, they hate us because they ain't us, but there's also a like, we really want to be you, but not totally like you. And so they're an interesting culture to compare to for that reason, because they are ruthlessly traditionalist. When it comes to like, this is the French way, you will come here, you will speak French. We are not going to tolerate anything less. And even if you try to speak French at a subpar level, we will mock you ruthlessly. And they're a very direct culture too. So they're not going to pull any punches if they look at you and they don't like something, they'll be like, oh, your nose is like, whoa, what's that on your face kind of thing. And they're very conditioned as a people to take that. And I think something Eris was saying is this idea that's really important is to remember that there are all of these other places in the world that don't have a Western mentality around this. I was actually in this conversation with I'm in this coaching group, and I was talking to these other coaches, and he was just banging on about protein requirements and how it was absolutely cast in stone how much people needed to eat, how many grams of protein per day people needed to eat. And I was like, well, have you read any research that's come from a non-Western country? And he was like, why would I do that? And I was like, well, because like there's an entire other half of the world that does not see things this way and does not see protein as the end all be all of all macronutrients, right? So like, it's really important to remember your inherent biases. It's important to be able to like see where be consciously biased, right? Versus unconsciously biased.
Well, just even the idea that we have become affluent enough as a society to be able to prioritize protein consumption,
Right.
like because we have such an abundance of food available to us.
And people will argue with you that meat is still to this day, with all the science on the planet, they would just be like, no, meat's the best, right? Just blatantly, just straight up, and that's it. There's no convincing them that a vegan can like still lift a truck, right? Even though some of the like best bodybuilders and weightlifters in the world are vegans, right?
Absolutely.
And that's a fact.
Yeah. Bill Pearl always comes to mind. One of the best in the business, and even today still looks phenomenal. I think he's in his 80s now, and still looks phenomenal.
and can
phenomenal.
function too. I think that's the thing too. And this is the dark side, like I was saying before we went live, of some of the fitness industry, is this this dogmatic adherence to a specific diet, right? Or a specific set of dietary tenets. And the reality is that, you hit your 60s and late 60s, 70s, and your health is not what you were promised, right? Your mobility is poor. There's all sorts of other things that crop up because you were fundamentally neglecting these nutrient needs
Right.
for the sake of this bodybuilder diet, right? So
Yeah.
Well, here's another.
Blaming your joints the whole time.
yeah, for sure, right? And I always like to be like, well, what about gorillas? Because people, gorillas are vegetarians. I wouldn't mess with one of those.
Elephants.
Right? For real. But some of the biggest animals on the planet are actually vegetarian.
Yeah.
Sorry, herbivores. They wouldn't consider themselves vegetarians, but that's weird.
Well, I don't know. Ask the elephant.
That's true.
But a gorilla does have a different digestive
paint,
tract than we do, I think. So, I'm elephant painting. Just on that note, I was in Singapore, and we were at the zoo, and I was running out. I was just low on my Singaporean dollars, and I had a choice between getting a taxi back to my hotel or buying this painting that an elephant had painted.
Oh, really?
And I opted for the taxi. No, because I was like, it would have been like a 4-hour walk back to my hotel, and I had to catch a plane, and so but I did feed the elephant. I did get to feed him like apples and stuff, and it was really cool. But so that is a regret that I have, that I didn't get the elephant painting though. But something that I think about, because I guess I don't think the consumption of meat is inherently bad, but when we think about how we're raising the animals, I think this is maybe a part of it too, because I think each one of us has a thought around being ethical consumers in some way, shape, or form. And if we were to see the conditions that sort of animal husbandry has brought about in this North American culture versus, say, the way that animals used to be raised and produced and what they used to eat. And so if we wonder why, and this is just me thinking out loud really, but maybe why this excess meat consumption is creating poor health. If we look at what the animal is fed first before it's slaughtered and butchered, that I think that affects the quality of what we're consuming. And it's
go one step farther and think about what kind of soil was the feed that they're being fed, raised in, and how was that managed and replenished. And I think the reality is it's a big circle, right? This is, I'm going to get all woo woo for like 30 seconds and I promise to pull it back with an inappropriate joke, but like it's, we're literally all just made of the same stardust, right? And that stuff just gets recycled, and how we allocate it and use it and appreciate it matters to our overall well-being, because as human beings, we are super convinced that we should separate ourselves from the rest of the ecosystem we live in. And it's bullshit, really. And it's one of the biggest things we have to overcome in order to sustainably continue to be here.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I look at as well is what are the emotions and the feelings that the animals having, what chemicals are being released into the animals when they're being killed, and then we're consuming all of that stuff that's left in the system. All of those things have an impact, because we think about how we sleep and how we eat and how our bodies respond to certain other factors like training and cardiovascular strength training, and the things that we carry within us impact our muscles. So I mean, the same thing goes into the animal, and going back to the soil and going back to how they're raised. Like you said, it's an entire system that, we become so privileged that we don't even consider those things.
And people don't think about where their food comes from. And a lot of people don't have the privilege. Let's be real about it. People don't have the privilege of caring where their food comes from.
No, they don't. No,
in a lot of places.
Even in America, it's a financial thing. Like
for sure.
And I think it's more easily prevalently seen in America when you have options, right? Where you have the options, and yet you still can't afford to eat healthy, right? You still have to buy the Wonder Bread because you have to feed the kids something. And if you buy the expensive bread, you're not going to be able to buy the peanut butter.
Or it may not be even available. And I think this is the cold, hard reality of a lot of places in America. There are some very vast food deserts here, and it's not a pretty thing to think about. And we like to think about ourselves as this developed nation that, is super awesome and amazing. And a very large portion of our population is suffering in a real way on a daily basis. So, it's, again, until we're ready as a culture and as a country to take a look at those really shitty choices we've made over the last several decades, we're going to keep repeating the same crap. I mean, I don't know, just not really to go like for boomers, but I'm going.
That's why she's on this conversation. Yeah. You should have her on Beyond the Check. Clearly,
yeah, we're gonna talk about that.
Yeah, I would love to. I am such a foodie, and like I said, I have a family full of chefs. So like,
we're hanging out.
Yeah, let's do it.
Eris, you were going to bring something in there.
He was having 1,000 thoughts. He's got to wait. Give him a second.
I like what all of you are saying, but specifically what Chris is saying, because I hear her. I think I was going to ask. Do you believe? I just wanted to pose a question because, like, we talk about what we all should be consuming and what's good for us versus what's bad. Do you guys and girls believe that like that's an individual thing, or is that on a collective level? Because our bodies, we're all different individually, right? We could all indulge in different things and kind of stomach different things. And for an example, right? Like I can't eat beef. Like I just can't. It doesn't sit well with me. I get the runs right away. I can't have minced meat. That's why I'm 9 years in, no pork, no beef. Because it just doesn't sit well with my body. My body knows itself. Like I'm okay with other things, So there's like this individual spectrum, and then there's this collective spectrum, and there's always these debates about what's good for us, what we should be eating. We see these young kids, they got GMOs out the wazoo, and that's why their bodies are like fully developed at like 12, 11, 10. And we might have missed that threshold, right? But they're probably eating worse than how we ate or how whatever, right? So what are our thoughts on that? On like what's good for us versus what's not?
It's such a hugely awesome question, by the way. Like I doubled up. Like who wants to start that one?
Nothing that tastes good.
Chris, you inspire me.
Nothing that is so delicious that you want to eat it every day is going to be good for you.
That's definitely true, and I think it's often
anything in moderation. Moderation is totally fine. Meat should be in moderation because any of the meat that you are going to buy today isn't going to have the nutrients all the way down from the fucking soil.
Nope.
That the meat that our great grandparents even had, right? And it's bad for you. It's all carcinogenic. No, there's no meat you're going to buy from the grocery store that's not going to give you that's not going to at least push your body towards.
So what is
an unhealthy state
for us? Just moderation, everything.
No, I think that the thing is that again we want to make this binary, right? And every time you find yourself tempted to make it binary, as in like what's good, what's bad, what do we do, what shouldn't we do? It's dangerous because the system's too complex for that. So I kind of look at it as a tiered approach. And John and I have been working on this model for expansive change for a little while and talking about like there's personal choices you have to make. Right. So like for you particularly, Eris, you figured out that beef doesn't sit well with you. Is that because beef itself is inherently bad? Is it the cows that you're eating? Is it the environment the cows were raised in? Maybe if you went to another country and you ate a cow, it would be totally fine. Maybe not. Maybe it is beef, but you don't have enough capacity to influence or control your environment enough to make that decision for sure. So for you on an individual level, no beef. Does that mean that you should then go around and tell everybody else not to eat beef? Probably not. Because it may just be a biology thing. But if we go level up, like let's talk about why maybe we shouldn't eat beef. It's not super sustainable. It takes a huge amount of resources. We're not treating those animals very well. Cows are really nice people. Have you met enough cows to be sad about eating them yet? I have.
Pigs are as smart as the elephant.
Yeah. And I think this is the thing. It's very easy, again, to make it binary. These are animals, to go back to this socially acceptable or culturally acceptable series of animals we eat versus don't eat. It's completely arbitrary, and it's completely based on environment and availability and also,
culture,
religion.
Culture,
and what was passed down through generations, right?
What you have access to as well. Yeah.
And what you have access to, right?
What about dealing with the psychology of not being able to eat, you having the knowledge, but not having the ability to follow the knowledge. And I'm sure there's a million people on the planet. I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm one of them, I'm not allergic to anything. I have zero allergies. I can eat whatever I want. Right. And I'm a hypocrite, right? I can sit here and say, that, meat should be a 10% of your plate thing, not a 80% of your plate thing. Yeah. Right. But I'm a hypocrite because when I go to a restaurant, I'm still going to order the plate.
Like a 64-ounce steak, didn't you?
No, I don't. I don't order steak anymore. I actually don't eat steak. I will eat steak like in a sandwich. I can't just sit and eat a steak. It doesn't taste good to me anymore. About 2 years ago, I was eating a steak, and my wife loves steak, and I'm just like,
Nope.
Just don't like
Well,
it.
because the other piece of the puzzle that gets missed here is we think about like how food is engineered. So we talk about moderation, and that's such an interesting thing to try to do when it's like food, in particular food products, are engineered in a way to bypass the mechanism in our brain that would act as like a rate limiter or a governor, essentially. They're engineered to specifically bypass that. So moderation is next to impossible because it accesses a different part of our brain and it triggers us. So it's like, for me, it would be maybe chocolate chip cookies. I can sort of override that, but it's
want another one.
Yeah. My brain is screaming for more. And like I would say like I'm a recovered binge eating food addict, and there's a whole backstory behind how I got to that place. But for me to like, I have to almost engineer my environment and say to my wife, don't bring certain things into the house, because it's just easier for me not to face that struggle and have to fight it every day, because I have a brain that wants that.
Yeah. But that's the system problem, right? So we were kind of working our way out, and then you have forces that work down upon you too, right? And you have these systems that have been allowed to thrive, which do not promote optimal human health. They don't. That's not what they're for. It's capitalism. It's profit based, right? We are a hustle profit society, and we don't care what the cost of that is currently. And that sounds very cynical, possibly, but that's why you get things like highly palatable foods that you can't stop eating, right? And they're hyper abundant and they're cheap. It's the trifecta of doom, right? And then we tell people they don't have any willpower.
Love that, the trifecta of doom, and that
it is.
Cheetos. Cheetos.
That Chester Cheetos was so adorable, right? And then you get a mascot into it, and you get kids on it, and I can remember when they rolled back the marketing. It was in the mid '80s, I believe, right? When they started marketing cereal specifically to children, and this fundamentally changed the dynamic in families and how they spent their money.
Does anyone eat any of their like fun cereals anymore, or have your taste buds just totally changed and now you're eating like the old man cereals like Shreddies and
I make my own granola, which is basically like glorified.
Get off this call.
I'm so boring and regular, but I will stand by being regular.
I don't drink milk anymore, so I stopped. I stopped buying cereal when I stopped buying milk.
Well, I do like macadamia and coconut milk, which makes me sound like I don't know. But because I can't do dairy milk either. I can do cheese because cheese is aged in a way that I seem to be able to digest it. But milk I can't do.
I have to get lactose free.
Yeah.
Or drink almond milk. Not almond milk, sorry.
Oat milk. It's like the almond industry is a whole nother kettle of fish that we won't dive into in this conversation. But
we've milked too many plants at this point. We really just need to give it up. It's like.
But now I'm super want some Cocoa Krispies.
Mine was Fruity Pebbles, actually. That was mine.
So
I didn't like the cocoa ones.
Fruit Loops taste weird to me. They throw me right off. They're weird. But Harvest Crunch, which if you look at Harvest Crunch is this type. Maybe it's only available.
Canadian.
So okay, it's probably Canadian. Okay, Eris knows what I'm talking about. At least one person knows.
I like it. I actually like it. There's some old man cereals I enjoy. But
what are like grape nuts? Is it like little tiny rocks? Is that what it is? That they just branded it differently?
Well, the thing with Harvest Crunch, though, is you look at the caloric density of it. So what I did is I compared 300 calories of Harvest Crunch to 300 calories of green beans and took a photo of it. And what I had was like this mountain of green beans that I couldn't fit on a single plate. I had to put on like a platter. And then I had this bowl that was like sadly filled with about 3 tablespoons of this stuff, because somehow, even though because we equate the crunchiness to maybe there's fiber and maybe it's a starchy carb and slow digesting. No, it's not. This is just glorified sugar bombs, like dressed up with a couple of oats to make you feel special.
No, but some of these cereals, like the names of them have like subliminal messaging. Like for example, Shreddies, it helps you shred, like it keeps you regular. Life, it has some stuff in there that apparently is good. That are good for you. That'll keep you, and Cheerios as well.
Special K and the marketing.
All of
that was some dirty stuff they did with the Special K.
Well, yeah.
Say that
Special
again.
K was Special K was the worst.
Wait, is Wheaties still good for you? Do athletes
Well, the
still eat
marketing.
Wheaties?
None of my athletes eat Wheaties, but
What did you say about Special K? What happened with Special K?
well, Special K was like it was marketed as a weight loss cereal for
Right, I remember.
forever. It had to be over a decade, and it would always have like I remember it really clearly as a young woman. There was
Yes,
a
I
tape
remember.
measure in the commercial, and they
Yeah.
would measure the woman's waist or whatever, and
Oh,
they'd be
I
like,
remember that.
Special K for breakfast. And I remember having it and thinking,
Yeah.
like, I'm so fucking hungry right now. How is that bitch that thin? I can
air.
actually vividly remember that.
Red dress, white tape measure.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
remember when the
Totally.
cereal
Or is this
got
a
attacked.
Mandela effect thing? We're gonna find out the dress was blue. That's what's gonna happen, right?
Or the dress was white and the tape measure was red. Yeah.
Right, totally. But yeah, no, and I can remember as a young female who was struggling with my weight, just being really shamed by Special K.
Yeah.
That was deep. Sorry, that's twice.
No,
Yeah.
there was like an
The
amazing
betrayal
soundbite
was
there.
real.
It was. I'm still crying over it.
Go back to this footage and grab that clip of you ranting on Special K, make it a TikTok or a reel or something like that.
No, please don't.
Well,
Tom likes to grab like the few moments where I rant and sound like irrationally angry and be like, "This is what she said." I'm like, "But I said other things too."
but it's the emotive stuff where the passion
Mhm.
comes out, where you go, "There's something here," right? We
But that's
were
not allowed
we were
from
screwed
women.
with though.
That's not allowed.
Well, in
That
this
gets me in
podcast, it
trouble.
is. That's the whole reason why I drag you into this. 'Cause I'm like, bring the fire, bring the noise.
Yeah.
But we were like, in a sense, we were kind of screwed with as kids, the way that we were marketed to, and we had no idea.
No.
And I any of us who are over 40, which I think excludes Eris, sorry, we're gonna, the rest of us who have crossed over the fourth decade of life,
The rainbow bridge of middle age.
Yeah.
we're staring down the backside of the hill.
I'll get there soon. I'll get there in a decade.
In a decade.
We all
Ah,
have a birthday, we all have a birthday. It's not about the age, it's about the stage. The stage of
Ooh.
There we go. There's the
Spoken
poet
like a
coming
true
out.
young man.
I felt when I was 16, I felt 30. So
yeah.
I
Spoken by a man who
felt
doesn't grunt when he picks something up off the floor yet. You wait, son.
I
The first day
just got
you've been on that floor and pick something up, and you go, "Oh, you're gonna know." You're gonna be like, "Ah, Chris told me. She
I saw
foretold this."
I saw this funny video online. I think it was yesterday or the day before, and it was depicting what it was like to get out of your bed in the morning at different stages of your life. So the guy was a teenager and he jumped out of the bed, right? As a teenager. In his 20s, he kind of rolled out, slowly. And then in his 30s, the moment he stepped out of bed, he broke his knee and fell down. He couldn't even get out the bed properly.
Hey, I have 2 brand new hips and I'm 42.
Ooh. I only have one.
Oh yeah?
It's not a brand new hip.
You have
it was
2
a full
hips,
replacement,
but
but I still
one-
have 2 hips.
Yeah.
They still don't lie.
I have a 2-year-old hip and a 2-month-old hip.
Ooh, wow.
This has become like a horror show now. Are you guys trying to scare me? What's going on?
I'll tell you all my surgery scars.
What
It was great.
happened? What happened?
I had dysplasia, so it was.
Oh, I had the opposite. I
still
had
got all the
FAI.
original parts, man.
So you have, because dysplasia is flat, right? And FAI
Dysplasia
is
is
too
like
deep.
oblong, so like
Yeah.
it
Okay.
turned to egg shape.
It
and
slips
just,
around
like,
your femur, slaps around, and
ground out all the cartilage. So it was just
yeah,
all done
like a
wrong.
mortar and pestle with that labor.
I'm looking for the Lazarus pit right now. You guys know where it is?
Okay, I'll tell you the secret though. Get a wife that's 10 years younger than you. Buy a Tesla at 40.
Single for life.
Get a couple dogs that are tiny and cute, and pretend that they're babies, and you'll be fine.
We're close here because I just bought an electric mini. I have 3 cats. And I moved to Colorado, so I can go outside all the time.
Guys, I'm living like John Wick. I'm a single guy with a puppy. I drive a Dodge Challenger with no children, no wife in sight.
Your table's on the floor. Is your mattress also still on the floor? That's the check of a true bachelor.
I sleep on a futon.
Oh,
It's the floor. You're like, I leveled up.
Yeah.
I don't know what generation I'm a part of or how close I am. I ask God, every morning I pray. I say, God, please send me a nice woman. And I don't know, man. Slim pickings out here, I got to move to like somewhere foreign or maybe.
I had to go abroad.
I know you don't want the table, but it might help just maybe a table and some chairs.
Okay. I have a confession. I do have a table, but it's used as an altar. Like I'm spiritual and I practice certain things, and the table that I do have is like an altar. It has some special things on there, and
I mean, that's nice. I'm sure Tiffany will love it.
Yeah. Pardon?
I'm sure Tiffany will love it.
Well, I met 3 and none of them did, so no, we're good.
Dang.
I'm in the doghouse.
All right, don't date Tiffany's.
Yeah, I was gonna recommend that, but that seems mean. Also, I'm sure there's good Tiffany's out there, but
What's an actress that had the name Tiffany? Tiffany. Obviously, there's Tiffany Haddish, but wasn't there another one from the 90s?
There was a musician.
Tiffany Amber Thiessen. She was on Saved by the Bell.
Yes, she was.
Yes, that's the only Tiffany.
And she's back. She's back on Saved by the Bell, the new season, the new edition. It's on.
There's new Saved by the Bell.
Yes, they have new Saved by the Bell. It's on
season 2 now. The new.
Yeah,
the new
it's on. It's on. What's it on? It's on Peacock. Right?
Is Zach back? I might watch it if there's still Zach. I don't know.
Zach's back.
I think everyone's back except for Screech.
Yeah,
right?
because Screech.
Oh no, Screech! Come on.
Screech died.
Yeah,
Screech
died of
Powell.
cancer. Screech
Oh
died of cancer.
yeah. Wait, the character or the actor?
No, Dustin
actor.
Diamond.
Dustin Diamond, yeah.
Oh, that's
Well, my wife
He
is
chain
just
smoked
texting
like
me.
it was his job. He died of lung cancer. My buddy actually hung out with him 2 weeks before.
No way.
Before he passed away. He was still smoking a pack of cigarettes in about an hour at the time.
Wow, that's a really interesting just sort of segue into behaviors that we know are unhelpful, but we continue to do because they solve a problem. You know,
That's a whole nother podcast, John. We've got
whole nother podcast, John. But Saved by the Bell, yes. Zach is governor of New York.
Wow.
Yeah.
He'll do a better job than the previous one.
It's actually not bad. I didn't want to watch it, but my wife was like, let's just check it out. And actually it's pretty. They brought all the kids from underprivileged schools were closing down, and so like the Slater transfer in the original Saved by the Bell, the traveling military kid who's the outsider comes in. Right. Well, now they have a whole school of outsiders that comes and joins Bayside. So you have all these outsiders mingling with like the preppy Bayside people, and it's more draw. Yeah, it's good. It's actually pretty good. Anyway.
Does it compete with Cobra Kai though?
I was just going to say.
Oh no, not at all.
Okay.
Not. Cobra Kai is Cobra Kai.
I haven't gotten into it yet.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
I like the. I don't know. I didn't really like Karate Kid when I was growing up, but
neither did I. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Cobra Kai it's kind of a bit like a car accident sometimes. Like you're not supposed to look, but you can't help but watch.
Like it's something you shouldn't be.
Yeah, I shouldn't like it because it's so cheesy.
What do the young kids say? They say it hits differently.
And if you don't have the nostalgic fact, it does just seem purely cheesy, right? But when you're like, that's
someone's
watching
that.
I remember that's like my grandfather's house.
Season 5.
I think when you go back and you actually watch the original Karate Kids, it's like, wow, these are really problematic, which has been my experience showing my daughter literally anything from my era of television growing up. I'm like, ooh.
Do you ever watch the Zach Morris is a piece of trash videos?
No.
Zach Morris is trash. Zach Morris is trash. YouTube videos, just Google Zach Morris is trash, and it literally just pulls up hundreds of episodes of Saved by the Bell where a guy just narrates what a piece of trash Zach Morris
he was.
He was. It's
gross.
Hilarious. It's like, oh my god, Zach Morris is trash.
Wow. Yeah. You type Zach and you get Morris's trash. Like
it's great. Check him out. You love him.
That's definitely on my to-do list after wrapping this up. So, what I love about these conversations is once we get warmed up, things get really good. The first half of a conversation like this is a bit of a feeling out process. We all sort of get our vibe, get our energy, get a feel for the flow of the conversation and who jumps in where and whatnot. And then we get to like the good stuff. When you get to about 30, 35 minutes in, that then the gloves come off and we get to the good stuff. So this has been a super fun conversation. Reyshan, I'm really glad you joined us.
Thanks for having me, John.
Yeah. So where do they find you again? Just go ahead and shout out all your promos and everything like that. Shameless, whatever's plugs. There we go. Fire away.
All right. Let's just make it one really simple. Go to my business card at POPLME, POPLME front.co /beyond the check. poppleme.co /beyond the check, and you have literally all
Everything.
the shows, the podcasts, every social media account that I have. I'm a new Tastemade maker, so starting next week, we're going to start doing live Tastemade events.
Nice.
And yeah, welcome to dinner. I think it's going to be my first thing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And
And
Beyond the Check is on Amazon, you said?
It's on Amazon and Fox's Tubi TV. So
Tubi
TV,
I'm gonna go
it's
watch
free
it.
TV.
yeah, I'm like I haven't watched an episode yet.
Oh,
So
well, come on.
I will. Like
Season 1 is the pilot episode, so it's a little more BuzzFeedy and fast paced, and then season 2 is a little more PBS-y, slow, like really get to know these owners and cooking show style. And season 3, when it comes out in November, is going to be a little combo of the both. Plus, I'm not the only person hanging out with chefs. My wife actually hangs out and cooks with the chefs, and my director of photography, Nikki, is also cooking with the chefs. So we just threw the whole crew in there, and we're all just hanging out and having a great time hanging out in restaurants.
This is a very clever way to never have to cook for yourself again. I really like this idea.
Oh, if I told you the truth, you wouldn't want to do it. Everything we eat is always cold.
Yeah.
I mean,
I bet.
Well,
it still tastes good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a glamorous life being a director. So it's yeah.
I'm at season 3 right behind me.
Okay. That's awesome. And Chris and Eris, who you might as well shout out your socials as well, because people after this conversation might be like, oh, I gotta look up this, Eris guy or this Chris lady who turns out she's got a little bit of feist in her, and not just a cat herder.
Not just a cat. No cat appearances tonight either. Sorry.
Yeah.
I am very unpresent on social media semi-intentionally, but I do have a podcast. You can find me at Deconstructing Health and Fitness, and it's on pretty much any major podcast platform. So it's me and a client who's opened up her experience and talks a lot about some of her journey through the world of health and fitness, and we tackle some of the big problems. We also have special guests on where we discuss some of the ways you can find good quality care and help in health and fitness.
Nice.
Cool.
Eris,
I'm still where am I following?
Shameless plug. Let's go.
So just touch base with me at Who How Club on all social media platforms. So Who How as in the Who and How Club. So just at Who How, and also at Only One Eris, ONLY, the number 1, and then my first name, ARYS. And you can find my website, everything. Yeah, you could. My link tree is in my Instagram. Instagram's always the best for me, and then you get access to everything else that I do. So, John, thank you so much for inviting me tonight. I'm sorry I missed the last one, but I'm happy. I think everything happens for a reason. So,
yeah.
I see what you're doing here, and I love it. So, I'm inspired. Thank you.
Awesome. Glad that we're gonna keep you around then, I think.
if you'll have me, yeah, and I'm really inspired by all of you. Like, thanks. I know Lamar's not in, but
yeah.
Shout out to him.
Yeah, and once we wrap this up, we can connect behind the scenes as well, and you can arrange who wants to be on whose podcast. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being on the show, and let's have a great night.
You too.
We've created a foundation of basing who we are on the response we get from people. People are expressing to somebody else out of the dislike maybe for themselves. When you can respond with compassion, you've learned to develop a certain amount of love and respect and appreciation for yourself.
Compassion allows us to look at these things and to see them as they are, with a desire to understand without the need to judge. And in that space, that's where we create powerful transformational change.